Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today I'm interviewing Roozbeh Ghobadpour. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. Yes. He's a teacher of Kadampa Buddhism and an acupuncturist, which is awesome because I'm having my first acupuncture at the end of this month. So I'm probably going to have a lot of questions there. Welcome, Roozbeh. Thank you so much for being on the Little Less Fear podcast. Welcome, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Thank
Very
you so
happy to be
much.
here.
So I'm really interested in your journey, mostly because I love the way you speak and you really have a way of grounding people. I see the calmness that you bring to people and to myself, and how much I look forward to your meditations. I just started meditating it recently, probably about a year and a half ago. As far as meditating like 3 times a day and being dedicated with meditation. But when I actually think about the first time I started meditating, I think about when I was a kid. I did martial arts for like 12 years, and we would do forms. But before we do forms, we take a deep breath, and we'd picture where we're at, or you're outside, there's waterfalls, whatever, and then start your form, and you're able to do things a little more fluidly. And I didn't know back then that that was somewhat of a meditation. And the person that actually reminded me of that was my brother, because he's like a third-degree black belt, and he went all the way. And he told me right now he's finishing his cancer treatments. He's a warrior, and he's pretty much cancer free now.
Oh,
Thank goodness.
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. And he told me that before he started his chemotherapy, he did what we used to do as kids in martial arts. He stood in a stance like this. He closed his eyes, and he was able to vision his future, and his future was cancer free. And when he was telling me the story, I realized, oh my goodness, my brother's meditating. I never even talked to him about meditation. I don't even think he realized that he was meditating. And I don't think that people realize in general how many times they do meditate in a day, whether it's healthy meditation or unhealthy meditation. Meditation is like concentration, focus, and intention. And that's I think that if people can redirect their mind and know the purpose of meditation, they'll be able to do it more fluidly. So I'm really curious to know what brought you to this journey.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about meditation, and I think people are meditating on negative things too,
Yeah.
without knowing it.
Yes, automatically.
Yeah, because anything that you concentrate on is meditation. Although every tradition has a bit of a different definition of meditation. A lot of traditions don't even define meditation. Um, and now you have apps like Headspace and Calm that are meditation apps,
Yes.
um, as well. And that's a particular kind of meditation. But in Kadampa Buddhism, which is the tradition I've been practicing for about 12 years, the definition of meditation is focusing on a virtuous object.
Oh, I love that.
So having mindfulness of a virtuous object, and a virtuous object is something that brings mental peace.
So
You
in
know,
the example of my brother, I guess that was pretty virtuous, to picture himself clean and disease free, to sit there and envision himself in the future. I mean, I saw that as a meditation, right?
for sure, that's a meditation. Yeah. I mean, you could define meditation as any act of concentration as well. So by holding the image of himself, that's actually a very profound form of meditation. And it's something that's very intuitive, and I think we can all intuitively do that. Now, there's different kinds of meditation, and that's why, what I wanted to talk about, what I definitely wanted to mention on this podcast is the difference between meditation and a spiritual path, because not all meditation is a spiritual path. So I'm going to get into that more. But going to your brother, he concentrated on a, a reality he wished to manifest, and which was already there, and he focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, he let go of focusing on negative outcomes.
Right.
And he had faith in the power of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely is going to create a positive effect.
But that's not necessarily a spiritual effect.
Well, we'll get into that, you know, and
Okay.
I'll do my best to explain it without creating confusion for people. But, so, you know, maybe it's a good time for me to say my story.
Yeah.
Of basically, you know, it took me a very long time to find a spiritual path. But before that, I had been meditating. And I was kind of brought to meditation through, I think, you know, when I started college, I was very interested in discovering what was out there spiritually. I had a few experiences kind of when I started doing Tai Chi, when I started doing psychedelic drugs, actually,
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of my first spiritual experiences where I had experiences where I knew there was something other than the physical body. That was pretty big for me at that time. So
What kind of experience did you have? Did you feel like and do you mind if I ask what kind of psychedelics? What, because I know that some people have tried ayahuasca and they've had the and DMT molecule where people have had that spiritual enlightenment, and it took that for them to realize that they weren't their body.
yeah, I mean, I pretty much did everything, and that's part of the problem too. I literally did
Mm-hmm.
you know, I depended a lot on drugs, and that became actually a huge problem for me later.
Mm-hmm.
However, those first experiences simply made me aware there's something other than my physical body,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know. And not everybody has that experience. I mean, I remember in college, my friend, one of my close friends who did more psychedelics than me, was very, very materialistic in his mindset, and so he didn't have those experiences. You know, it all depends what karma you have. So if you have the
True.
karma to, so that was interesting. You know, to yeah, because I had a few friends who also did it. We all had different experiences, but
And you
that was
felt,
my experience. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I knew, you know, and I did also, I met a Tai Chi teacher at that time and did Tai Chi, which I guess was one of my first experiences of meditation, in the sense it's a moving meditation and you're calming your mind. Again, Tai Chi makes you aware of your subtle body, your energy body, that part of you that you can't cut open and pull out, you know,
Yes.
but it's there. You know, it made me aware of that. And I remember my Tai Chi teacher one day just looked at me and said, you know, um, we don't die, or we never die when our body dies. We continue on,
And that was
and
pretty
you live many
impactful for
lives.
you, huh?
I instantly knew he was right. It's like he gave me that. He like uncovered that for me. I had an experience where I knew for sure he was right. So since that time, I've never had any doubt about past or future lives.
And what was that experience?
When my Tai Chi teacher told me that, I just awakened to that truth.
Wow. It's so interesting
And it
how
was
some,
not intellectual.
yeah.
It's difficult to describe. It was not intellectual. I just knew. And then gradually I had past life memories, and you know, it's just not something that I just see as, for me, it's reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's just reality of the situation. And looking at it from my perspective now, I think it's rationally like very, it would be very weird if this was the only experience we had.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
wouldn't
that would
make
be
much
really weird.
sense.
I
Right?
agree. I agree with you
Yeah,
100% there.
like you're supposed to figure it out in one life,
Right.
and then
Yeah, we
what?
can't figure it
You
out in
know,
one life.
you know.
When
Um,
you say you had past life memories, do you mean in dreams or do you mean visions in your waking life? Or do you mean as a
it's
kid when you were a
different.
little
Yeah,
boy?
sometimes you know past life memories can take different forms, and we're having past life memories all the time, but we're blocking them out surely. But if you look back, you can see. If you meet someone and you feel instant connection with them, I mean, it's pretty much 100%. You knew them from past lives.
I always feel that to
And
be true.
Buddhists teach, yeah, for sure. Or if you feel instant dislike of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, where does that
You
come
know?
from? Like, why do you not like that person?
Yeah. Of course, you can look at things through different lenses. I'm sure, you can break that down in a number of ways. There's probably a scientist that can tell you, oh, you're emitting this pheromone and they're emitting that one. And,
Yeah.
that's the thing. You can look at things from different places.
Uh-huh.
But if you want to see it spiritually, you can. And that's the most important way to look at things, I've found over the years.
I have found
Even
that
though
to be true.
yeah, because, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but so I meditated on my own. I would just try to clear my mind. I was doing psychedelics. I was having various experiences, but I became an addict basically, and I became very depressed. And I went kind of the path of psychosis. Then I got sober, which was very difficult, and started doing the 12 steps. And that was my first kind of spiritual path, because the 12 steps creates a kind of spiritual awakening.
It does,
It's
yes.
a spiritual path, yeah. So, but after a while of doing that, I got depressed again. I had a huge existential kind of depression. I've always had a tendency towards depression. And at that time, I had already been reading books on Buddhism. I'd just never gone to a Buddhist center. I'd gotten some of my current teacher's books, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. I just picked them up at the Bodhi tree when that was around.
Yeah. I love the Bodhi tree. That was on Melrose, right?
Yeah, I love that store. But I would go there and I would always reach for his books. And I'd always just loved Buddhist teachers. Even the whole time, from the very beginning of even inquiring about spirituality, I'd always gravitated towards them. One of the very first books I got was Osho's Book of Wisdom, which, despite all of his shortcomings, I think as a guru, he did really have some inspirational stuff in those books, and he talked about Atisha. That whole book is about Atisha. It's about the eight steps of training the mind. And when I heard about these teachers, I just had like instant faith in them, and that I can only ascribe to previous lives. So when I prayed, I was depressed, and I made a strong prayer to Avalokiteshvara, was the Buddha of compassion, for a spiritual path. And I was at a Kadampa center like a week later. And that was 12 years ago.
Wow. That's an amazing story, Roozbeh. You've come a long way. And look at you now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to gauge how much progress you make. The thing with spiritual practices, as soon as you visit your parents, you realize how unenlightened you are. But
yeah.
But I'm a very, very different person. Very different person than who I was when I started. When I was started, I was just I was not sane at all,
So how can you say, or how could you describe that meditation has changed you as a person? You said you were not sane, so it's made you sane. What do you mean by that? How can you define as being sane now? What has it done for you?
Meditation is not what did that for me. The spiritual path is what did that for me. And that's the distinction I want to make.
Okay.
Between meditation and a spiritual path. Meditation is a wonderful thing, but meditation for the sake of just clearing the mind, reducing stress, maybe increasing memory, or maybe creating some positive change in your life. That would be a kind of health tool.
Yes.
It's not a spiritual path. A spiritual path leads to spiritual awakening or enlightenment, which is the actual purpose of our life. meditation is a huge part of a spiritual path, but it's not the only part.
That's really important to point out because I always correlate meditation and spirituality together, but they can be separate. And I never saw it as being separate. But yeah, wow.
Well, we all have a generic image of what a meditator is, you know, we all have a kind of concept in our mind of what it is. And then it gets, you know, meditation is heavily researched by scientists. And there's, you know, they're measuring brain waves and the effects it has and all the stuff. And it's all very compelling and intriguing. And the benefits of meditation for mental health are huge. Why? Because I believe one of the reasons is because you have space between you, who you are, and your thoughts and emotions. You realize that you're not those things. That's huge. If you believe that you are just your physical body, your emotions, then you are the slave of what's appearing to you. You know, you don't have control over, you don't have freedom. You just, you're only associated with what's appearing to you, what appears to be you. And it's not you. It's not you. This body is not us. This mind is not us. This body, this mind, this brain, these things are all impermanent.
So I mean, I understand that because I've been, you know, studying, been on the spiritual path now and going to the retreats and stuff. But how can we make that easy for general public to understand where we are not the body, we are not this physical form?
Well, you know, you just want to have an open mind to it and then be open to that experience, you know. And I think it's very important to listen to the wisdom of ancient people and traditional cultures. Buddhism is not the only spiritual path that talks about this, nor is it the only religion that talks about this, nor is, I mean, pretty much everywhere you go, any traditional culture, they will tell you you're a spiritual being. You go to the Native Americans, very spiritual people. They will I'll tell you this. You go to any indigenous culture, the shaman will tell you this. You go to a Taoist, a Hindu, a Buddhist, a yogi, any traditional form of religion. If you go to the mystics of the Western religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they will also tell you the same thing.
What can you tell people that have, I've met many people like this, where they feel that when you die and that's it. And there's like no way of quote unquote convincing them. And it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm even stuck when people think that way and I just don't even want to go there. But how can we welcome the idea that, because I just feel that you will live a more blissful life if you welcome spirituality and your future lives. But how do you get into someone's head when they feel that you're dead, it's like a computer, it shuts off, you're done?
Well, you know, I mean, I let people believe what they want to believe. I don't try to change people's opinion, you know, and everyone has a particular karma and everyone has a particular view, and not everyone that believes in spirituality is actually experiencing the benefits of spiritual path, you know, because ultimately it comes down having a peaceful mind. So that person that believes you die and that's it could actually be a far better person than than the guy having past life memories and tripping on ayahuasca or whatever, but who maybe is not who's maybe is selfish. There's a lot of, you know. So again, going back to a spiritual path, it's a path to awakening.
Enlightenment, awakening.
Spirituality itself is the idea of exploring what's beyond this physical body of mine. But that's a lot of stuff, you know?
Yeah, right.
That's a lot of stuff. And you could have a lot of experiences, and but they don't actually create real happiness for you, because the real happiness is going to come from a spiritual path. And all genuine spiritual paths are going to lessen the ego. They're going to lessen the ego and lessen the self, and make other people more important. They're going to cultivate love and compassion and decrease our attachment to our separate sense of self.
So ego is attached to the human self completely.
Ego is the self that you believe you are. I am.
Is there such thing as a healthy ego?
I personally do not believe that.
So all,
and I that could be a misnomer as well. There's a healthy sense of self, in the sense of basically being able to control your reality and make choices, right? And a healthy ego, maybe that's what people mean by a healthy ego.
healthy
Somebody who
self?
can make choices. Yeah, it's very simple. You know, you're able to create plans and do things, and take and have control over the various parts of your reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that, I would say, is I mean, being spiritually healthy gives you that. I would say that you don't have that without spirituality, because we don't really have free will if we are completely dominated by our feelings, emotions, minds, our history, our opinions and beliefs, this self. We don't really have free will. Free will comes from being able to step outside of that and make choices. And
Without
that place is
attachment.
a silent place. Without attachment, yeah. Or a place of inner peace, inner silence. You can make choices, you can see clearly. So I believe in order to have true free will, you need to have mental calm. Because otherwise you're being controlled by your mind.
Yes.
Otherwise you're being controlled by your mind. It may appear like that's real. It may appear like you're making decisions and making choices, and you are,
Mm-hmm.
for all intents and purposes. You know, if you commit a crime, you can't say my delusions did that,
Right.
you know, or I didn't really do it, you know. But if we really check, who is the self that's operating? Who is really did that? If you were overcome by some strong anger, for example, and it caused you to harm someone, were you really in control? Did you really make that choice? You know, we try to have this view towards others in Buddhism, so it lessens our anger at others.
Yeah.
So we realize that if someone harms us, then they themselves are in a state of suffering.
They
And they're
are.
not in control of themselves.
And that gives us the ability to be compassionate and empathetic towards that person that has anger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because anger equals pain, right?
Anger, yeah. Anger, the definition of anger is a desire to harm someone. So we have to define anger. I mean, people define anger as different things. So in my tradition, the definition of anger is a desire to harm someone.
I never saw anger as that way. I usually saw anger. Now wow, it opens up my anger window to a new meaning of it. I used to feel that anger was controlled by kind of like self-hate or pain, and not really. I never really saw it that way that you just explained it. That's awesome. But wow, in that case, I don't really feel I personally have that much anger in me. I don't want to hurt anybody. That's
Well,
interesting.
that's great. Yeah.
And that includes
But it
hurting
can
people with
arise.
even your thoughts, like in all ways, not just physically.
Yeah. It's a mental action.
Yeah.
It's a
the
mental
most
action.
powerful, right?
Yeah.
Mental actions are
Yeah.
more powerful than physical actions.
Yeah. Mental actions are more powerful than physical actions.
So what is
Mental
something,
actions have the power to change your reality. And that's why meditation is so powerful, because meditation is primarily a mental action.
sure is. What is something you want the world to know? Something that's that you feel is vital towards life's purpose. All this stuff I feel is vital towards life's purpose. But what is something that you feel that the world is missing that could change profoundly humanity?
Well, I think people need to know that they're spiritual beings. There's a spiritual potential for everyone, and the purpose of life is really to uh, actualize this potential and use this potential to attain spiritual awakening, which is liberation, enlightenment, um, and that's the purpose of life, and that's why we're really here.
The purpose
That's
of
the
life,
opportunity.
you're saying the purpose of life is for us to become awakened. And what do we do once we're awakened? What do we do with being awakened?
You're done. You're awakened.
How does that help people?
It helps people just by virtue of you being awakened. It will help people
So by
automatically without you making any effort, because you're an awakened being.
so
Simply
what's
the
in it?
presence of an awakened being will change the entire world. However, awakened beings usually give teachings and do various things. And, everyone in your family will benefit. Everyone that you know will benefit. Everyone that you see will benefit. Everyone that sees your picture will even benefit.
Mm-hmm.
A genuine spiritual master simply seeing their picture brings benefit to people. Looking at a picture of a Buddha will bring benefit.
That's so
Why?
amazing.
Because
So powerful.
it's nourish. It is powerful, yeah. But it shows why. Why does that happen? Because that's where we're all meant to go. That's where we're all meant to go. I mean, look at the body, look at the mind. It's very temporary. Very temporary. We live as if it's not. I think maybe our brains are also wired to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the actual. When you go to a deeper level of mind through meditation, when you practice spiritual teachings and especially spiritual path, you you realize that you're something else. You're not this body or mind. This is very temporary. And I don't remember who I was before this life. I don't know what my next life will be. So I'm in the dark.
Yeah.
I can't remain conscious when I sleep at night. How am I going to remain conscious when I die? So this whole process of death and rebirth is largely outside of my control. Am I meant to just keep coming and learning lessons, so to speak? I don't think so. I mean, that's a common belief that we're in this world to learn certain lessons. I guess you are, but the lesson, I would say, you're here to awaken. You're here to awaken. You're here to follow a spiritual path. You're here to actualize your spiritual potential, reach a state of awakening. Great teachers such as Buddha all say this.
I remember I'm 41 years old now, but I remember in my 20s I went through this, and I still see this. I don't know if it's like the whole or a lot of people in their 20s or whatnot, but I see when a lot of people say, well, I'm atheist. Like you can't even bring up the word spirituality because right away they think it has something to do with God, or they just put a big wall and say, I'm atheist. I don't talk about that stuff. Like what can you say to people that say things like that? Is that their karma and you just gotta let it write it out and find their own
I
spiritual
mean,
path?
I don't try to
What if somebody physically went to you and said, "Hey, man, I'm atheist. What can you tell me about that?"
Well, then they're an open-minded atheist, right?
Yeah, if they're asking you, yeah.
Now, Buddhism is an atheistic religion, you know, in the sense that Buddhism doesn't believe in a creator God, but Buddhism does believe in Buddhas and holy beings and the state of consciousness that's far beyond the brain wave material state of consciousness. So the major problem I see is people are very attached to a very, I don't know if racist is the right word, but it's a very kind of degrading and disrespectful idea that Western culture is the peak of humanity. That somehow nothing that people that came before us in the fields of medicine, in the fields of spirituality, in the fields of the understanding of the mind, these things were primitive. And we can only believe in what an MD says or something with a double-blind research. And those are proven because some quote unquote material evidence is there for them. And everything else is hocus pocus until these guys say it's not. And to me, it's just completely wrong. It's very arrogant.
It is wrong.
And it's rotten to the core in a way, because if you also investigate pharmaceutical science, for example, they're well aware of healing powers of plants, but they can't make profit off of them. It's a conflict of interest, so they're not going to promote them.
Right.
That's kind of a separate topic, but one I'm pretty passionate about. But that's also one of the reasons why there's so much research on meditation and Tai Chi, because it doesn't compete with pharmaceuticals. So this is a very Victorian notion. This is kind of like a deeply racist, disrespectful notion. These are the people that came and destroyed the natives here. That's what led to this, the people with no respect for indigenous cultures, no respect for wisdom. If anything, you need to respect who came before you.
Absolutely.
And build on that. You need to look there and then build on that and say, look, I have a microscope now and we can investigate,
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening. Ancient wisdom is being diluted, polluted. It's being seen as either some kind of witchcraft, paganism, unproven, primitive, or it's being, even in the field of spirituality, it's the traditional teachings that are being called out as racist or non-inclusive or this and that. People are confusing some of the terminology and language and beliefs that were more prominent back then with like negative and shaming and this and that, For example, in spiritual practice, Buddhism, you hear a lot of don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
Ignore the, ignore this bad feeling, or this is a delusion, or this, and it's pretty harsh, and it actually led me into therapy for a while as a Buddhist, because I'm like, okay, I have these, I knew I had some real childhood trauma that I wanted to investigate, and I wanted to make room to feel certain things, without just straight calling my depression or whatever was coming up a delusion. I just wanted to see, well, what's here? Maybe there's something there. And I went to see a Jungian analyst, and I did that for a couple of years.
Did you find out anything that was profound?
I found out how profoundly vast, confusing, and dark the inner regions of my mind are. It increased my faith in Dharma.
Oh, great.
Increased my faith in those teachings. I had certain dreams and certain experiences where I could feel, some and make contact with some of these archetypal forces and negative forces in my mind. But I saw very clearly how powerful they were and how they're in control, and they need to be put in check. So at the end of the day, I then understood, oh wow, Dharma is actually taming these forces too, but it has the goal of awakening. It's focused on awakening. Not to say that my therapy was not valuable for me. It's just everything I've done has shown me that in these ancient teachings, there's a very, very, very profound understanding of psychology and of spirituality and the spiritual dimension of life, which our Western culture has not tapped into. It's barely kind of scratching the surface stuff.
I totally agree. Yeah, like I got my doctorate in clinical psychology 10 years ago, and I did it because I wanted to help people and I wanted to help myself. I mean, I was in so much turmoil myself from my past with my growing up and family issues and stuff, and I was trying to find ways to understand humanity, and I didn't find it in psychology. Even with my doctorate, I did not find it. And I saw patients for about 5 years at a rehab, and I felt that, yeah, they had the 12 steps and stuff, but there was still some element that was missing. And this is about 12 years ago. And I couldn't pinpoint it until I found Buddhism. And I was like, this is the real deal. This is the real psychology right here. And I feel that they need to, I mean, there needs to be a doctorate in like Buddhist psychology. I mean, just becoming a monk, I feel, should be like a doctorate in itself.
Well, here's the thing, like, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Buddhist psychology works because it's not trying to fix your psychology. It's awakening you spiritually. I heard a quote a few years ago that stuck with me, and said, the solution for all psychological problems is spirituality.
I wholeheartedly believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah. You can't heal mental illness. You can only delay it. You can't heal physical illness. You can only delay it. Eventually that body's going to die. Eventually that mind's going to fall apart. It's not going to work anymore. The whole point is to use this opportunity to find out what we really are.
Yeah.
And when you do that, your psychology improves and your physical health improves. When you do that, it's like a side effect.
Yeah.
Let's say.
That's really interesting to say it that way.
But we're trying to treat the symptom without getting to the cause, and we can get temporary results. Most of psychology, I think, it's just designed to make you functional. That's it.
Yeah.
Functional in society. But if you can be profoundly sick and be fully functional in society.
Very true. Very true.
So, yeah. And you can be non-functional in society and be profoundly awakened. And we don't have a lot of respect for those people in our culture, but those people are respected in India and other cultures where they respect spiritual awakening.
So you found that once you found your spiritual awakening, that's when you weren't depressed anymore? Is that what healed your depression?
I stayed depressed as a Buddhist for many years. Depression is not depression, I believe, is very complicated. I believe it does involve every aspect of your being. And I'm not here to tell anybody that, oh, you go become a Buddhist, your depression will go away. Mm-hmm. For a long time, I did what's called spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is when you're intellectually engaging with spiritual teachings as a way of avoiding your own emotions and your own pain.
Oh, wow. So when did you actually face it, or how did you have to purify your karma, or how did you actually face it then?
Well, it just took time, and gradually you attend teachings, and gradually you understand it more and become more sincere, and things come together. And I did plenty of searching outside of Buddhism too. I'm an acupuncturist. I believe Chinese medicine is one of the best traditional forms of psychiatry that there is.
Wow. Tell us about
Yeah,
that.
you have a complete system of mental health with on every level in Chinese medicine. You have an understanding of the spirit. It is not a materialistic system in its essence. The way it's taught is more materialistic these days, but you have an understanding of the spirit. You have an understanding of the body. You have everything you need. You can give herbal treatment. You can give acupuncture treatment. You can even give counseling treatment. Although I tend to let people talk to therapists, I find that's very beneficial. But you even have meditation and qigong and various things, to help with that. However, you're not going the actual. So again, I'm a Buddhist, but I respect all indigenous religions and ways of thought and sources of wisdom. Chinese medicine is a Taoist tradition. It's come from people who observe nature, sages, enlightened people who observe nature, observe their mind and observe plants and created a healing system from it. That's its root. The root illness, classical Chinese medicine, this is not what's taught in school these days, but that information is there, is that illness comes from not following your destiny. That's the definition of disease.
Wow.
Is you're unable to follow your destiny. And your
Because
destiny
you're
is
lost, because your spirit is lost.
your spirit is lost. And there's an actual, your spirit is lost. Your spirit can leave. It can leave. It can say, I'm out. And it can leave because of a traumatic event. It can leave because your life has no soul, it has no meaning. It can leave for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But you can call it back. If you create the right conditions, it comes back.
That's amazing.
And when it comes back, you have your destiny.
That's so amazing. I feel like I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours and hours. So I have a question. Obviously, we won't know the answer, but I have a good friend of mine right now. A good friend for over 15 years. He's in a coma, and he's been in a coma since November. And actually, he woke up about 2 weeks ago, but he's not. They say he's brain dead, and he's not in the hospital anymore. He's at his sister's, and they're waiting for him, hoping he'll wake up. So there are times when I'm in my head, let's say I'm exercising and I think about him and I can hear his voice, not like literally hear it, but I can hear what he would sound like or how he would respond if I were to ask him a question. And I feel him near me when I'm listening to, he loves Madonna. So I'm listening to Madonna working out and I'm like, David, this is for you, you're my lucky star or whatever. And he'll be like, yes, like I just hear his voice and I'm like, what in the world, where is he? So I wonder if he will ever make it back into his body, or if what happens to people when they're in a coma, because there's so many stories where people say that they remember things or they heard things or that they were seeing their body from having outer body experiences. I mean, and then the people that just never come back, is that like a free will of the spirit, or is that has something to do with how strong your body is at that point to be able to detain that spirit?
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question, but I can definitely say if someone is brain dead, they have a severe injury to their mind. And at that point, that's we want to make prayers for that person. We want to rely on higher beings, enlightened beings, who have the ability to help someone in that situation.
Yeah, because I was watching this Netflix documentary. It's called Surviving Death, and this one woman was dead. She was underwater for over 30 minutes, and she was in a coma, and she lived. She was blue when they pulled her out. I mean, she was dead. So I'm just like, wow, that didn't even happen to my buddy. So it's like, how does that happen? It's like everybody's You just never know.
Everyone has different karma, you know, and she could have left her body and come back because it was
That's
her
so
karma to come back.
that's
Yeah.
so incredible.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think of it. We're here having a particular karmic experience. Um, my heart goes out to your friend. That sounds like
Thank you.
very tragic, and I'll definitely make prayers for him.
Thank you. His name is
And
David Ghobadpour. Thank you so much.
okay, I will. Yeah, that and that's just the reality of life. But you can rest assured that David, regardless of what happens, will live again. His
I do feel
mind,
that.
his mental continuum will not perish. And if we make strong prayers, we can affect where his mind goes.
That's
We
so
can affect his
beautiful.
mind. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love it.
So
Please re-
sometimes the worst tragedies can be the best opportunities. I mean, I experienced that recently. A friend of mine died suddenly at the beginning of the lockdown last year. It
Oh
took
man.
everyone by surprise, and we didn't even have a funeral or a chance to really, you know, pay our respects or grieve. However, um, I did a poa ceremony for her at my house. Poa ceremony is Buddhist ceremony for the deceased to help their minds travel to a Buddha's pure land or heaven where they can um, be free of the sufferings of samsara, or in samsara in Buddhism is the world of suffering, uncontrolled death. And there's the various bodies and places of samsara, you know, is what we wish to escape in Buddhism by attaining nirvana. But I did a poem for her, and interestingly enough, she had a couple friends in the same tradition as me, Kadampa Buddhism, in Malaysia, who did a poem for her. We both got very, very powerful signs and feeling that it was successful.
That's
And
awesome. Like what,
since
did you have a dream or did you have like a vision?
it was like various different signs, like things her husband told me later, and a feeling I got during the poa. You get a very strong feeling sometimes. Um, and I fully believe like she's in a Buddha's pure land, and I actually feel her from time to time helping me.
That's so awesome.
And I know for sure she's helping her husband
Oh, I love
because
that.
he, you know, feels her presence. And these are just experiences, you know, that you need to have. So that's another
Yeah,
thing. It's like these experiences are available,
they are
and that's
available.
what people need to know. And we need to have open minds. I mean,
Yeah,
what if you don't know who you were before you were born? How can you claim to know what's gonna happen to you when you die? How can you claim to know that? You know,
sure.
I think humility is really important,
I'm sorry, what'd you
and
say? Humility?
humility, yeah, and we gotta. And again, we got to respect the ancients. I mean, people have been saying something for 10,000 years. You got to listen to that,
Exactly.
right?
That's the real foundation right there.
Yeah, and especially if different cultures all over the world are saying the same basic things. Yes, religious paths are different, traditions are very different. You know, if you go to the Hopis, they're going to talk about, I don't know, the hawk or the condor or whatever animals are there. Coyote. If you go to the Amazon, they're going to talk about the jaguar, ayahuasca, this and that. You know, and then you have um, like very, very advanced cultures with highly sophisticated spirituality and mantras and technology, such as India. However,
And Egyptians
they
too,
are
right?
Egyptians too. I mean, that's kind of gone from the earth. Egyptian, you're looking at actual material technology. So Egyptians are that's amazing example for to battle the idea that we're the most technologically advanced materially.
Sure.
We can't build those pyramids, and the idea that they rolled that shit up. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you can do that. It's fine.
They rolled they rolled these giant 2,000 ton
Tons.
limestone blocks
Laser
on
perfect.
logs. Yeah. And again, how can our professors believe that? It's like obviously freaking wrong.
Right.
Like, why don't you go back and instead of saying it's because there's a belief, there's no way something that came before us could have better technology than us. Right? Then why don't you challenge that belief?
And there you go again, which makes sense. That whole discrimination against ancient cultures. That's not cool. I never even thought of it that way. That's so true.
Yeah.
Like Westernization has completely discriminated them. Wow, it's mind-boggling.
Especially with medicine, that's where I think it gets very tragic, because lives are being lost. So yeah, these days, there's a global understanding of systemic racism and various things. But to me, and why is nobody talking about that? That's what I'm most concerned with.
Yeah.
And because it's really affecting the quality of our lives, it's affecting the quality of our health, it's affecting our understanding of history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's deeply racist in its core.
I do feel
it's saying like go for it.
I do feel that that there is I call them up and comings, but like the newer generation, I feel that they are curious about spirituality, and I see it on Instagram, I see it on social media where they are starting, some of them are really starting to become awakened, and I feel that we need this surge in order to save humanity, if even possible.
For sure, yeah. Unfortunately, true spiritual paths and traditions are on the decline. Indigenous wisdom, that it's on the decline.
That's sad.
However, feel-good spirituality is on the increase because it's more about feeling good and looking good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see
right?
the difference. Yeah.
Real spirituality is going to go counter to that. It typically leaves a bitter taste in the mouth. There's a lot of Buddhist teachings that are not fun, like teachings on death. You become aware of your death, so you take advantage of your life. Teachings on how selfish we are.
Yeah.
How we never think about others, and that's the real cause of our problems. And these are very difficult things to change. Our main problem is we have a very exaggerated sense of self. So you can go after spirituality with this exaggerated sense of self and even make it bigger. Because that self is looking for some kind of experience to prove its own specialness. It does that intuitively. I mean, I did that for years. We do it without knowing, especially if we're coming from a place of real pain and trauma.
Oh yeah.
Then we need to have that experience to make ourselves feel special and lovable, and that's where it gets really wacky. It gets, yeah.
Well, maybe we can start a movement to start awakening people to the ancient past.
For sure. Well,
Roozbeh, I remember.
Yeah.
I just want to share this because I don't want to forget. I think I turned 20 on my 24th or 25th birthday. I took a trip to the Yucatan Peninsula, and it was the first time that I had set foot on like sacred lands because I saw all the pyramids, and I just remember having a sense of serenity and peace, like walking on their land, and it was something inexplicable, and I cannot find it here in the US, I'll tell you that much. And what can you say about that sacred feeling? Is that just the foundation of my spiritual ancestry past, or is that where my soul wants to be, or is that just everybody? If everybody takes a trip somewhere sacred, will they have that same feeling?
Not necessarily. I think you need a certain level of sensitivity, and those places were designed using very complex and deliberate systems of
Have you
alignment,
traveled somewhere
creating of
sacred?
structures. Yeah, I just came from the Southwest.
Did you have that feeling at all? It's like
I
this
did.
this deep inner respect. It's like, where does it even come from? Like right away, it's like, don't touch anything, leave it at its place, take it all in. There's a different type of energy aura that I was able to feel. It was really calming and just unusual. I'll tell you that much. Very much unusual, but a good unusual. Grounding.
Yeah, for sure. You may have had a past life there.
Maybe.
Know? Yeah. And that's an experience of calm and sacredness that you have. And that's wonderful. I mean, I feel that in nature. I really feel that in nature. I think it's important to be in nature. I think it's very important.
When you say important to be in nature, you mean going for a walk, or you mean hanging out at a park, or going to the beach, or going camping, hiking? What do you mean by that?
Anything. But ideally, you get out into the forest and you spend some time there and you really relax and you listen and you're with the elements, with the trees, and you're taking that in.
I really need some time. I need some nature time for sure. Healing nature time.
Yeah.
Roozbeh, thank you so much for your time. This has been really amazing. It's been really profound, deep, and beautiful. And I feel like I can breathe. This is amazing.
Of course, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'd really like to do a segment coming up soon on acupuncture. If I can invite you back in the future, hopefully we can talk about acupuncture. That'd be great.
For sure. Sounds great.
Thanks so much for being on Little Less Fear, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.